Pokemon. There are so many of them and they're all unique. From Aber to Zacian, no two are the same, mostly. With so many Pokemon existing, Smogon, the primary competitive Pokemon government, I guess, creates tiers for each of them based on usage stats and bans. Clearly, Zekrom and Arceus aren't going to be allowed into the same tier as Spidops and Flareon. The tier I'll be focusing on today is one of the most unique tiers of all and my personal favorite. Little Cup is a tier for, well, babies. It's played at level 5, creating a multitude of unique interactions including weird damage rolls, chip healing being generally worse, Oranberry and Berry Juice being way better, and Pokemon not even being able to learn all of their moves yet. The thing about a tier with all babies is that, despite them having terribly low base stat totals, plenty of them still have access to absurdly powerful moves. Without explaining it too deeply, if a Mon uses a 130 base power move that's meant to be switched into by a Mon with well over 100 special defense, and your best switch-in has a solid 65, it's gonna get obliterated. As a result, when combined along with the aforementioned funky damage rolls and the high damage variants, which is more math I won't bore you with, Little Cup becomes one of the fastest paced and most offensive metagames out there. Now here's the thing, I mentioned earlier that most Mons in Little Cup have terrible stats, but define terrible. Most good Mons have over 300 combined base stats. The two best Mons in the tier have 350 and 330 respectively, and the Mon with the highest base stats of all is Munchlax with a whopping 390. As a general rule, if you've got over 300, then odds are the stats shouldn't be too much of a problem. Today's video, however, is going to be going over great Little Cup Mons with terrible stats. Let's get into it. The first good Little Cup Mon with bad stats is Diglett Alola. Now, before you say, obviously Diglett is good, this is Alolan Diglett, not regular Diglett. It doesn't have Arena Trap, the main reason base Diglett was banned. If we take a peek at Alolan Diglett's stats, they're a bit yikes. 90 speed is exceptional, giving Alolan Diglett a very respectable 19 speed, being able to outspeed just about everything, and 55 attack is okay. Diglett will be able to dish out okay enough damage. Then you look at the 10 base HP and everything starts to fall apart a bit. That is literally the worst of any Pokemon ever. 30 defense and 45 special defense makes this even worse, resulting in Alolan Diglett being pretty much useless defensively. Despite having the valuable Steel Ground typing, which is generally solid enough, Diglett Alola cannot eat pretty much any hits, even with an Eviolite. So how is this little guy any good at anything? Surprisingly enough, Alolan Diglett has not one, but two solid sets. The first good set is a simple lead set. Focus Sash negates the absolutely garbage defensive stats, so you can tank at least one hit, and then set up Stealth Rocks. With Diglett's ability, Tangling Hair, whenever it gets hit with a contact move, it lowers the opponent's speed. So now, the opponent's speed is lower, Stealth Rocks are up, but Diglett's on 1 HP. What's next? Alolan Diglett usually also runs Memento, to KO itself but also cut the opponent's special and physical attack in half. After this, you can just use the free switch to get in some sort of setup sweeper, like Shelter usually, and get a solid kill or two using the free turn of setup. All in all, it's a solid enough set for hyper offense teams. Alolan Diglett's other good set is Life Orb. Life Orb Alolan Diglett, it's only for real gamers. Defensive utility, it's got 2 immunities, switch into those in a prediction. Guess wrong? That's called a skill issue, buddy. 10 HP, who even needs Eviolite? You'll die in one hit to everything anyways. Recoil damage? Suck it up. Eat this Terror Ground Earthquake, losers. If you run this set, you're one cool dude. But in actuality, this set is a pretty solid revenge killer. If you can achieve the difficult task of getting Alolan Diglett onto the field, it can and will put in work. And although its bulk is terrible, it can often tank one neutral hit, so it's not the worst of the worst. Running Substitute also can help it with predictions, and it has great coverage with its 2 stabs plus Rock Blast to actually just murder Volibee. So all in all, despite having admittedly terrible base stats, Alolan Diglett somehow manages to be a solid enough option in Little Cup, and a fun one at that somehow excels at 2 sets. Before we get into the next Mon, please subscribe if you haven't. I'll most likely hit 4K by the time this video comes out, and subscribing helps you see more of my videos. Just consider it, okay? Impidimp. Where do I even start with this Mon? I guess I'll start with the stats. Bad. 265 base stat totals, with the highest stat being 55 special attack. Also, 50 speed means Impidimp will max out at 15 speed, which is slower than just about every relevant Mon that can dish out damage. So what exactly does Impidimp do? What it does is enable one of the most annoying archetypes in Little Cup, Screen's offense. Impidimp has the ability Prankster, which makes its status moves go first. In this sense, its speed stat doesn't matter, it'll always go first anyways. Impidimp will come in, use Light Screen or Reflect to increase the defenses of it and its team for a whopping 8 turns with Light Clay. After that, all it has to do is just switch out, often with Parting Shot to lower its opponent's attacking stats even further, and bring in one of its broken setup teammates. With boosted defenses from screens, sometimes setup sweepers can get more than one boost, resulting in free early to mid-game sweeps you wouldn't otherwise get. I personally have a general disdain for Shelter, and seeing it potentially get shell smashes, or be able to shell smash against things it otherwise couldn't, makes me mad. Generally, Impidimp is pretty easy to use, and you just kinda click screens then Parting Shot, and it's annoying to play against. It even often runs Thunder Wave to be even more annoying. Thankfully, Impidimp has fallen out of the meta a bit, but it's still annoying whenever it comes up, and it's undeniably a solid enough mon in the Gen 9 Little Cup metagame. The next mon, truthfully, doesn't have that bad of stats, with 290 base stat total. What's interesting about the stats is the distribution. Trapinch has a whopping 100 base attack, the joint second highest. It also has the ability Arena Trap, which makes it so that its opponents can't switch out unless they're airborne. This results in a very solid trapper. Despite its poor stats, if Trapinch has an Eviolite, it can usually tank one good neutral hit and get an attack off on its own. And if its attack is super effective, let's just say absolutely nothing is surviving that. Ignore that. Anyways, Trapinch is an excellent trapper. If your opponent has one specific mon you really need to get rid of in a poor matchup or something, Trapinch is great at either dealing a huge chunk or just straight up removing it. Trapinch can even trap grass types, which would otherwise resist its Earthquake, and just KO them with priority first impression, which is a great option. It's so good, in fact, that many grass types choose to run Protect just to counter it. Crazy metagame influence, king. Before I reveal the last mon that's good despite having absolutely terrible base stats, I just want to say that I've recently enabled channel memberships. You absolutely should not feel pressured to activate this, but if you want to support your favorite YouTuber, I doubt I'm actually anyone's favorite YouTuber, then this would be a good way to do so. If you want to help me but don't want to spend money, then just subscribe. Maybe comment too if you really love Lemon LC. Anyways, yapping aside, the last mon has over 100 less base stats than just about any other good mon, which in Little Cup is a lot. Its single highest stat is a measly 46. This wonderful mon is Nimble. You might be wondering, how could a bug with 210 BST be any good? And it all comes down to move pool, ability, and metagame. Nimble's move pool is honestly pretty bad. It's only got about 5 good moves, but that's more than enough. It has First Impression to deal massive damage with +1 priority, but only on its first turn in the field. U-turn to deal also big damage, and switch out, allowing more opportunities for First Impression later. Leech Life to deal solid damage and heal up the chip it's taking with its preferred item, Life Orb, and then either Sucker Punch or Agility to use against faster mons it might come up against, or just as a late game cleaner. All of that seems okay, but it's still not good enough for a mon with 46 base attack. Tinted Lens makes Nimble's not very effective attacks do neutral damage. Essentially, barring a quad resist, nothing resists Nimble. Suddenly, its strong priority first impressions do great damage to everything coming in. It's also still a gamble, because do you dare to switch to something that can eat a first impression and risk getting U-turned on? Nimble is suddenly starting to cause some big problems. The last reason why Nimble is good is metagame, specifically Terra. Terra Bug turns Nimble from a solid revenge killer to a terrifying little nuke that's shockingly hard to switch into. Life Orb Terra Bug first impression does serious damage just about everything, and it can resist U-turn while still doing good damage, just to come back in later and do the exact same thing. Resists still take neutral damage, and you can't even chip it down with Life Orb plus Stealth Rocks due to Leech Life giving it some healing. Nimble is a niche, but genuinely threatening mon that's a solid option in Little Cup, despite having some of the worst stats I've ever seen. Its biggest issue is its poor speed, but even that can be remedied by priority. So those are my picks for the best Little Cup mons with terrible stats. Also, very quick update, I moved out of my parents' house and I'm now going to college. So that's partially why this video took so long, that and I'm lazy. Subscribe, whatever, blah blah blah, I don't know, then videos.